Hello, this is Sarah Braasch. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to discuss the harassment I endured in my dorm room and on Yale's campus this past spring between February 24th and May 8th, 2018, which culminated in the notorious living or napping while black incident. I will devote an entire video to discussing what occurred on February 24th, 2018, but I just want to point out that I was the person who was terrorized in my isolated dorm room that evening. I was terrified and trapped in my dorm room, unable to leave for hours. The harassment I endured occurred in stages. It seemed that my attackers changed tactics each time I really put my foot down in my appeals to Provost Stephanie Spangler and Cynthia Smith. The first stage took place between February 24th, 2018 and approximately April 6th, 2018. It was during this time that I believe that I was primarily being harassed by the resident coordinators of the Hall of Graduate Studies, my dormitory. I believe, now more than ever, that the resident coordinators were acting with my attackers to harass me. I believe that at least one of the resident coordinators may have actually been present at the party that took place in the 12th floor common room on the evening of February 24th. And I believe that she may have participated in terrorizing me in my dorm room that evening. I believe that the resident coordinators acted with my attackers in order to retaliate against me because they blamed me for having been reprimanded by the Yale housing managers for their behavior on February 24th. As I had mentioned in my prior video, the Yale housing managers had said that they would be more than happy to simply close the 12th floor common room for the duration of the academic year. But when I subsequently requested as much, I was told by the resident coordinators that they refused to close it. I then asked that it at least be closed to parties, and I was ignored. Between February 24th and April 6th, 2018, the resident coordinators booked parties in the 12th floor common room as never before. Parties that were an even more egregious violation of housing regulations, which went late into the evening, well into quiet hours, and which were raucous and obnoxiously loud. Additionally, the room was consistently trashed, and trash was strewn about everywhere, including in the stairwell, with the nearby trash bins overflowing and mounds of garbage piled up next to them, causing the entire stairwell to reek. This occurred more often than it ever had before, even though the resident coordinators had made a commitment to monitor the use of the 12th floor common room to ensure that the housing regulations were being abided by. I interpreted this as retaliation for my having asserted my rights to live in a safe environment and to be able to take reasonable precautions to enter my dorm room safely, including by calling the non-emergency helpline of the Yale campus police if need be. I let the provost and Yale housing know that I regarded it as such. I ended up recording the noise coming through the adjoining wall into my dorm room during one of the parties. And I took pictures of the overflowing trash bins. I sent this evidence via email to the provosts as well as Yale Housing, and I demanded that the resident coordinators desist in booking outrageous parties in the 12th floor common room to retaliate against me for having asserted my rights under both Title IX and the ADA. I was assured by the provosts that they had dealt with Yale Housing and that this behavior would cease altogether. At this point, I believe that my attackers changed tactics. Between approximately April 6th and April 24th, the focus of the harassment and attacks was on my dorm room door. Someone would approach my door at least once each evening, late in the evening, and grab the door handle, shaking it ferociously, as if they were attempting to break into my room. Sometimes they would also pound on the door, sometimes they would also scream or yell. Of course, this was absolutely terrifying. Around the 24th of April, prompted by a follow-up email by Provost Spangler and Smith, I made them aware of the harassment. I also sent an email to Officer Grace Schenkel of the Yale Campus Police Department to let her know of the harassment. She told me that she would add the information to the police report that she had filed. At this time, I was told by the provost and Officer Schenkel to call the campus police at any time for any reason. I told them that I had not been calling the Yale campus police because I was terrified of further retaliation. I also told them that I did not know who was harassing me, as my door had no peephole, and I had been doing as instructed by not opening my door, not confronting my harassers, and not saying anything to them in response through the door. I did tell the provost and Officer Schenkel that I strongly suspected the resident coordinators and the students who were involved in the February 24th incident. Excuse me. Provost Spangler and Smith said that they would address the matter with Yale Housing. I demanded to be refunded any rent payments to Yale Housing, as my dorm room was uninhabitable due to the fact that I was being terrorized in my own home, and Yale was doing absolutely nothing to address this. I begged the provost and Yale Housing to close the 12th floor common room, as it was only being used as an excuse and a vehicle to harass and attack me. I begged the provost and Yale Housing to tell the resident coordinators and the students who had been involved in the February 24th incident to stay away from me, my dorm room, and the 12th floor of the Hall of Graduate Studies, as they had promised me that they would do. I wished for nothing more than to leave, but I was trapped, as I had to be in New Haven to teach, but I simply lacked the funds to remove to a nearby hotel. I began to make arrangements to leave campus as soon as was feasible. I began to pack up my belongings, and I made arrangements and began removing items to a storage facility in New Haven. I asked friends of mine in New York City if I could come and stay with them as soon as possible. I began to be afraid for my life. I know that when harassment escalates like that the next step is physical violence. I told the Yale administration and the Yale campus police as much. Between approximately April 24th and May 8th, 2018, which was the final stage of the harassment, my attackers' tactics changed yet again. The focus during the final stage of harassment was on the adjoining wall between the 12th floor common room and my dorm room. Instead of holding raucous parties in the 12th floor common room, and instead of attacking my dorm room door, it seemed as though there were just a couple of persons, maybe 2 or 3, who would scream and yell into my dorm room from the 12th floor common room through the adjoining wall on most evenings. Of course, I now believe strongly that this was the man and the woman who made numerous television appearances for the purpose of defaming me. There was also a great deal of slamming of doors, both the elevator door and the common room door. I will do an entirely separate video to address what actually happened on the evening of May 7th and the early morning of May 8th, but suffice it to say that I was terrorized on that evening as well. Additionally, I had mentioned that I had begun hearing myself being discussed as I walked across campus as a racist who should be kicked off campus and thrown out of school, and I now believe that my movement to and from my dorm was being tracked and that I was being stalked, perhaps not consistently. There were at least 2 other occurrences of a similar nature. I did not record the exact dates upon which these occurred. One such occurrence involved a group of presumed Yale students discussing me in similar terms as I exited the Yale post office. They all stopped and glared at me as I exited the building. I now believe that they followed me there and waited for me to exit. As much as I documented, I wish that I had documented even more. I was tremendously busy throughout the semester, and I never could have imagined that something like this could have happened. It still shocks me, as in I still literally go into physical shock sometimes when I think of what was done to me. A group of Yale students, assisted by the resident coordinators, Yale Housing, the Yale administration, and the Yale campus police, waged a months-long campaign to destroy my life, to settle a delusional, jealous, and obsessive personal vendetta against me. They also weaponized the Black social justice movement, including the Living While Black movement, to destroy my life and to try to get me killed, thereby destroying the Living While Black movement in the process. Thank you so much for spending a few moments with me.